Welcome to the Fatal Facts of Fentanyl. This is dedicated to raising awareness of the illicit fentanyl crisis hitting the USA. It is killing tens of thousands of people who suffer from substance abuse, disorders, and first-time users. There are no boundaries. It is straight across the board with a number of deaths without any regard to race, sex, socioeconomics, age, education, religious background, or location. It is in every community within our country. The fentanyl crisis is deadlier than ever before for various reasons. It is time to address the many issues surrounding this crisis. It is time to listen and learn from experts. It is time to hear the many stories from people who have lost their loved ones due to death by deception. Change begins with each of us as individuals and collaboration with others towards this positive transformation. The goal is to save lives and families from this travesty. Awareness and education are the key. Knowledge is power. I am your host, Lisa Carol Cood, an educator and advocate to help bring awareness to the fentanyl crisis touching every facet of our society. I am a mother who recently lost her son to fentanyl poisoning. I know firsthand the pain of grief surrounding the loss of my firstborn son. I created this podcast in hopes of channeling my heartbreak and put my energy into trying to prevent similar tragedies. I find solace and strength in working to spare other families a similar grief and any person battling this addiction. Tragedy has a way of being something powerful. This is in honor of my beautiful son's life, forever 32. Right here on Fatal Facts of Fentanyl, you will learn from experts on the front line combating the many issues surrounding fentanyl. You will hear personal stories from families and friends who have lost their loved ones and have taken their grief and pain to turn it around to make positive changes and bring awareness and education. You will also listen to people who have struggled with an opioid addiction and are still struggling and are now in active recovery. All of us share a common bond. We are all here to make a difference. We are all here to bring you the fatal facts of fentanyl. Today I'm going to read you a quote. Here it is. More than 450 lives are lost every day in the United States to drug-related causes. My only daughter's life mattered too. Yes, Tiffany's life does matter. Our next guest is her mother, Virginia, who is determined to be her daughter's voice in bringing awareness and education with factual information to the illicit fentanyl crisis killing our children per year in our country. This has got to stop. I am honored to have Virginia as our guest. She is working diligently on this effort to stop the insanity of fentanyl distribution and the murders being committed by this deadly drug. This may be sensitive information, but needs to be heard. Welcome, Virginia. What is your message? What motivates you to educate our audience about the fentanyl crisis? Please tell us the facts. Let's all listen and learn.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to thank you also for being a bereaved mother yourself and for all your hard work and devotion in creating this forum for people to be able to come and learn important information that's critical to this crisis. I started doing this in 2016, a year after my daughter died, Tiffany. She died from a counterfeit pill, which contained fentanyl. And the first question I asked myself is, how did this get to my daughter? Where did it come from? And who's making it? I knew fentanyl did not come in the form of pills. First of all, prescription fentanyl doesn't come in pills. So I had a lot of questions and no answers. So I went back to what I know to do, which is to find out those answers. And I spent a very long time researching it. And the more I learned, the more disturbed I became. This fentanyl crisis began in earnest in 2013, and it's been masked by the opioid crisis. Nobody can deny that that occurred. And unfortunately, because of the opiate crisis, it's gone under the radar. Since 2013, China began mass manufacturing and distributing illicit fentanyl in the United States, knowing full well that it was illegal, that it had no clinical or any other use in the United States. And they were giving federal tax rebates to their companies manufacturing and distributing it. And so that began the first wave of death, which started with the folks who had gone from prescription pills over to heroin. They contaminated the heroin with fentanyl, and there was a purpose behind it. The cartels wanted to create stronger, harder addictions in their population to a much cheaper and easier to manufacture product. So that first wave of death that we saw, we didn't even know to look for fentanyl. So they were just categorized as heroin deaths. Everybody thought it was just because of the opiate crisis, and we moved on. But then a new group started to emerge, people like my daughter, people who were outside of the substance use disorder community, who didn't have a history of addiction, who started dying. And nobody could figure out what was going on. And so what we did was, again, we doubled down on addiction and harm reduction and all of those things that will ultimately help someone who wants to be helped. But they did nothing for this new population dying, and they did nothing to stop the deception that was happening. When we talk about these deaths, the term overdose gets used quite a bit, and it's overused in my opinion. And frankly, it doesn't adequately describe what's going on. When someone knowingly takes a substance and it harms or kills them, and it is what it says it is, then yes, we could categorize that as an overdose. However, it doesn't matter what it is. If someone deliberately disguises a deadly substance as something else and gives it out to anyone and causes an injury, that's a poisoning. It doesn't matter if it's in a legal or an illegal substance. It doesn't matter what they put it in or how it was obtained by the victim. What matters is they were deceived. And in many cases with this fentanyl, they're killed, or they've created an addiction in a person who was not addicted before to fentanyl. And both of those are criminal. Both of those things are heinous. And so we have to redefine what this is for the public so they understand that these are not overdoses. These are poisonings. The question we had, a lot of us had, was why? Why would the cartels be making counterfeit prescription pills, which mimic trademarked U.S. pharmaceutical products, and mass distributing them? And the best answer we can come up with is that it's a way to deceive otherwise healthy people into an addictive situation. They're trying to incite addiction in otherwise healthy people to their products without their knowledge, without their consent. What's even worse is they're putting them in the form of far less lethal substances like Xanax, Adderall, Percocet, Oxycodone, Oxycontin. And we've become a victim of the safety and security that we have learned over many, many years to expect and trust in the manufacturing of our pharmaceutical products. So what have they done? They've made them like a wolf in sheep's clothing. These pills are made to look identical to these products we trust. They are, and even if our children use the pill identifier websites that they have, they look identical to them. So there's no way that they can tell the difference. And so they get this Percocet for maybe just a one-time use and experimentation. Maybe they get a Xanax because they broke up with their friend and they're trying to cope with, that problem in a society which has taught us that pills cure everything. And they're dying. So we have parents walking into bedrooms all over, finding their children dead in their beds, face down on their computers, with pieces of these pills left behind, which were delivered right to their homes and ordered on social media.
You're exactly right. These are heinous crimes. I can't think of anything more disturbing and frightening like this. I think all Americans just need to wake up to what's going on. They're not going to hear it on our mainstream media for various reasons, and they're not hearing it from our government. Can you tell me, I understand that you went to the border recently, the end of June. Can you tell our audience about that experience and what you saw firsthand?
Well, yes. And first of all, I need to stress something very important here. The drug policies at our border and the immigration itself are two separate things. And we have to separate them in the interest of public safety. Many of the folks who are coming here are fleeing the undeclared cartel wars against them that are going on south of our border, that have been going on for quite some time. And those areas are incredibly dangerous areas to be in. So when I got there, it was not with a mindset, that any people coming here are bad. I've never had that mindset, but it was with a mindset that I wanted to see how these drugs are getting into our country and what can we do to improve that situation. I ended up going to an encampment that is right on the border, being run by volunteer veterans who are basically offering support to central border to border agents to detain and report activity going on. And the one thing that struck me the most, they also do clean up in the desert because the amount of garbage out there is just unbelievable. Any environmental activist that sees this would be shocked by just how much is really out there. But they find discarded cell phones everywhere. They had an entire Tupperware container, a big one, just full of discarded cell phones. And there's video and photos on these phones. The one phone that they showed me had a child. There was a photograph of a little girl. She could have between the ages of 6 and 8. And in the text message, he had taken a picture and jokingly called her his ticket. That was what he referred to the child as. And then there were photos of him at an encampment with armed men. He handed that ticket over to cartel members, and that paid for his passage into the United States. In the background, there were 2 semi-tractor trailers that were prepped and ready to run over the border with drugs. And there were quite a few men there dressing up in camos and fatigues, which they were preparing to come through, and hopefully undetected. But the scariest thing is that what they do with these children is one of 3 things. Those children are either forced to join the cartel and they're raised to be violent, they are put into human trafficking, or if they can't serve the first 2 purposes, they use them as decoys. So what they will do is they will take these children and dump them off in the middle of the desert alone. And our first priority as a humanitarian country, our agents rush to the children. And as they're rushing to the children, those semi-trucks run straight through areas of the border that have not even a piece of chicken wire to stop them. And so this is what's going on. When I saw it, I did. I sat there and I cried when I saw that little girl.
Virginia, I would be crying my eyes out too. And thank you so much for explaining that and really giving us detailed information. It sounds like to me they are fully taking advantage of our country. They're infiltrating our country. These are heinous crimes. They're exploiting and using women and children, like you said, as decoys. there's a strong correlation between human trafficking and drug trafficking into this country, just like you explained. This is not only a national security crisis. This is, like you said, a national humanitarian crisis. And this is also a national health crisis. It's a public safety that should be top priority in this country. I know that you have a passion about this subject. Can you touch upon the national health crisis and what it's doing to our country right now?
Well, currently we are losing between 300 and 350 lives a day to fentanyl alone. It's reached into new populations of unsuspecting young people. And so now we're in an environment where if your loved one even tries, let's say any kind of drug, cocaine, meth, ecstasy, which is extremely popular among our young people, they have a 1 in 5 chance of encountering fentanyl and having a fentanyl poisoning. If they decide to try a prescription pill from the black market, they have a 1 in 3 chance of encountering fentanyl and having a fentanyl poisoning incident. I think what's the most telling is that prior to 2013, the DEA seized zero fake pills in this country. In 2020, in Phoenix alone, the DEA seized over 6 million counterfeit prescription pills of fentanyl, and of those, 1.5 million were lethal doses. If those had hit the street, 1.5 million people would have died. Not might have, not could have, would have died. And that's just one city in this country. So we have a massive health crisis going on. The folks outside of the substance use community, they honestly don't know. One of our activists, Dan Schneider, the pharmacist, recently visited a high school, I believe it's in Louisiana, and spoke to a group of teenagers. There were 200 in the room. And when he asked them if they knew about COVID, they all raised their hands. When he asked those 200 kids if they knew about fentanyl or fake pills, 0 raised their hands. So this is a massive problem. You know, within 3 months of COVID, everybody in this country knew, wash your hands, social distance, wear a mask. We're 8 years into this fentanyl crisis, and the majority of our kids still don't know about fake prescription pills that can kill them. What's even worse is every day for COVID, you know how many cases there are and how many people died. Yet for this crisis, we first of all, nobody knows how many drug injuries there are in a day who survive. Nobody's counting the number of hypoxia-induced brain injuries there are who survive, which means that they stop breathing and that causes brain damage. We have people in nursing homes who literally are vegetables now. They have no life, and they're not even being counted as being part of the opiate crisis. And a new study released by the University of Pennsylvania and Georgetown University uncovered that the CDC is reporting less than half of the actual drug-related deaths. So, you know, we're not counting it right. We don't know how many cases there are. And every effort that we have is addressing less than half the problem. And then people wonder why this is continuing. It's because we have failures on every level in how we're managing this crisis. And we have got to get people on board so they understand.
Yes, Virginia, you're exactly right. With all this information and knowledge that you have acquired over the years, and you are a leader in this coalition, can you tell me what you would like to see happen and what changes need to be made, and just to save lives and to also bring awareness and education in this country? What I want to hear from you. What do you think needs to be done?
The very first thing we have to do on every level is we need every government agency, the federal and the states, to engage in a massive public awareness campaign. Fentanyl should be a household word. There shouldn't be a person in this country, not one, who doesn't know about these counterfeit pills. This is a new problem we've never had before. The second thing we need to do is address the 2 main supply sources while there are still only 2. Right now, this is not prescription fentanyl. It is coming from China in collaboration with the Mexican drug cartels. These are the two big players, and we have an opportunity for the very first time in history. We have a chance to head off something before it becomes a chronic problem we can never get rid of. We have the chance, we have the technology, we know who, we know how, we know where. And we need to make every effort on every level to force these two countries to take serious action to stop the manufacturing and distribution of black market fentanyl, which outside of a clinical setting, any kind of fentanyl is a poison. If a doctor is not supervising it, it's poison. And that's how we need to treat it. We need to declare it a weapon of mass destruction. What people don't understand is there are hundreds of thousands of pounds of this deadly chemical all over this country, and nobody knows where it is. This is a national security nightmare. We have got to get our agencies involved. We have got to get this off the street. The National Directorate on Terrorist Threats issued reports 3 times now to Congress, warning them that fentanyl is a very high value weapon to bad actors seeking to do great harm in the United States. And we have people, regular people, driving around with a pound of this in the back of their car, which gives them the chemical capability to kill up to 500,000 people right at their fingertips. That is not heroin. That is not like any other drug there is. This isn't a drug outside of the doctor's hands and in the hands of the general public. This is a deadly poison. In fact, cyanide takes 100 to 200 milligrams to kill an average adult. It takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl to kill an average-sized adult. That is how serious this is, and that is why we have to look at this differently. This is a new problem that needs new solutions.
Yes, ma'am. This is bioterrorism, and this is chemical weapons coming into our country. And we do have major resources in this country, and they need to collaborate, but then their hands are tied, from what I understand. They need to all get together and implement and try and stop this. This is insanity. You're exactly right. Now, Virginia, I can't thank you enough. I want to thank you for your strength, your courage, and your perseverance, fueled by your genuine care and compassion, and being a leader for our coalition to bring awareness and education. All Americans need to join this fight and follow your lead. Tiffany's life mattered, and countless other beautiful souls lost to illicit fentanyl, purposely killing our loved ones. I want everyone to know our children are never forgotten, and they are always loved, and we are their voices. Thank you so much, Virginia. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to this weekly podcast. Visit our website, which is linked below in the description. On the website, click on the social media icons, and feel free to share this podcast with others. And also, please leave your reviews and ask questions that you would like for me to ask our guest for our next episode, dealing with the fatal facts of fentanyl. Enjoy your week. Many blessings.